Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and today I'm going to be making every school, I guess, in Wizard101 for, like ranking type deal for PVP, and it's a good chance this information is outdated within the next couple weeks, but I will be making a re-ranking for whenever I think the meta has sufficiently shifted, so I will be doing that. But for right now, the 7 schools in Wiz, there's honestly quite a gap in viability between some of these schools. It's like there's this whole Rochambeau wheel going on where there's like some schools are favored against others, but oftentimes you'll find that if you just need to be on a better school to win in a lot of these cases. And there are 2, maybe 3, depending, big schools that are just better than everybody else, and their only competition is each other. So, yeah, that's that's kind of the state of the game right now. It used to be everybody could beat everybody, but not anymore. And obviously there's stuff like gear differences and stat differences, and you'll notice that the better a school's stats are, the higher up on this tier list it's going to be. So on that note, let's start off with a school that I think has the worst stats, and that is Storm. It would be at number 7 anyway, but just so we're clear, Storm's resist cap is 56. There are 2 schools in the game that can not full pierce a Storm but when they're hitting their pierce cap, and those are Life and Ice, and those 2 both get pretty close, I'm not gonna lie. But the resist cap is 54 for Storm, and the damage cap is 207. But Storm's, I guess, main pitfall is their inability to deal with, I guess, like damage mitigation. It's like when you think about like a shield, it's like all these other schools have their own ways of dealing with the shields. An Ice can Frostbite and get a bunch of damage. A Death can Poison. A Myth can Minotaur. That sort of thing. Like a Balance can use Seals of Destiny. But Storm does not have anything like that. They never got anything in like the Legacy type deal that could get them anywhere. Except for Storm Elf, these pet cards. These are pretty useful. These are very useful. Actually, I shouldn't just say they're pretty useful, but yeah, Storm Elf, this is kind of a Storm saving grace against like set shields and that sort of thing. So that's just sort of what a Storm's got to do. And the elephant in the room is Storm's incredibly small health pool. Everybody else gets like 10.5k health or more, with most schools getting around like 12 plus. There's like Fire and Myth will get about 10.5 to 11. So that's where we're at on there. It's like Storm just dies way too easily, and Storm's honestly got a pretty good card library, I would say. Like Berry Surprise is really good. Storm Owl Path B with Adapt is insane, and then Storm's library is pretty good. It's just lacking in overtime, and yeah, their stats, like between the health and the low resist, and honestly, like, the Pierce is not even the highest in the game, like it should be if the devs really want Storm to be the de facto damage school. But Storm is just sort of at the bottom of the barrel, and it has been for a while, and I don't really see any reality in which it comes up unless like the health gets giga buffed or like the resist comes up a little bit. But the resist honestly shouldn't come up, just because it's Storm, and Storm is sort of the glass cannon school. But the health coming up, I am sure, would make Storm a lot better, because it is technically a health school on the Rochambeau stat wheel. So I just wish the devs could abide by that. But that is going to be why Storm is in last place. It can still give some, surprise victories, like if you were to Blade and Trap a bunch, and then go for an Owl, like one of every buff, like a Blade, a Trap, an Aura, and a Bubble. An Owl would probably do mass in Trike, but it's kind of hard to set that up in some instances, and especially against some specific schools. So yeah, tack on too easily countered to the list of problems with Storm. But yeah, I've gone on for long enough. Storm is definitely at the very, very, very bottom And there's a big viability gap between this and number 6. Coming in 6th place, we have my beloved school of Ice, and I have gardening gear on right now, so don't worry about the stats, but I'll get into those. And Ice's issue, it's sort of, if I could ever find the deck that I use, Dreamstalker, where are you? There we are. Okay, so Ice's main problem, Ice has really high resist. Ice is like the inverse of Storm pretty much, and resist is just a better stat than damage. So Ice is just really able to go all in on resist and just really tank well. My Ice build has about 14.3k health as well. So Ice is a very sustainable school. It's just, it struggles with, you know, out damaging its opponents. And there are only 2 matchups where Ice is favored, that being Storm by a good bit, but not like a definitive overpowering victory, and then it's a little bit better than Death just because of the card library. So Ice is like, it has some good spells, spells like Cold Iron that do like a little bit of damage, like not a negligible amount, that's for sure, and put on 2 45% chromatic shields is honestly insane. It's like, the spell is really good. And then Ice has a good anti-aura, and then Snowman is really good against anybody that weaknesses you, and A-Bomb is just a good shad just in general, and Ice can really make good use of Brace. It's just, like I was saying, it takes a lot of extra work compared to the other schools for Ice to, you know, defeat their opponent. And Ice's damage cap is currently 176, I want to say, and then our Pierce cap is 47. So that's very low. It's like Storm has the lowest resist in the game at cap of 56, and Ice barely gets within 10% of the lowest resist in the game. So against all the other schools that have much higher resist, it's like Ice just sort of struggles with that. And with how big like Pierce is becoming, it's like Pierce is becoming a better stat than resist, and that is sort of holding Ice down a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Ice can still definitely win pretty like handily against like honestly every school if they're like really good, and are running like a specific setup that is tailored to that matchup. But overall, Ice is like, you really need to lean on your combos, like Frostbite into Tamauji, or Frostbite into Abominable Weaver, Golem into Abominable Weaver. It's just, Ice needs a lot of pips, and yeah, it's like, Ice also needs buffs to really do well. And, you know, we've got the Blimp Buddy pet, which gives 2 35% Balefrost item cards on top of the 4 that we can already pack. So Ice having Bubble, that's usually, it's usually a good thing for Ice to have Bubble. And if Ice can keep Bubble, then it's like a very good thing. So it's like, that's how Ice can get ahead in damage. It's just, getting Bubble is not guaranteed, and you really need to fight for it. You need to make sure you don't deck fail, and that's how you are able to keep Bubble. And yeah, I mean, Ice has a lot of good things going for it. It's just a weak school, and that's why it's in the 6th place spot. The only thing that I think could make Ice better is if our like damage and Pierce were to come up a little bit, and that would really solve some stuff. I mean, it's already hard enough for Ice to hit caps, and there is an update coming soon that will drop a deck that will help with this. I can actually almost hit the current stat caps with that deck, but it's like, the stat caps are still extremely low, and that is a big part of why Ice just struggles. And it's like, there are 4 matchups that are very unfavorable for the Ice right now, and yeah, Ice is just sort of kept down by the Life School. Will be taking the 5th place spot here, and Life just is like, there's another big gap in viability here is what I'm trying to say. It's like, Life is the healing school, and it's really good at healing. It's just that, like Ice, it is weak in nature, and it just doesn't really do as much damage, but it is honestly more sustainable than ice, and it is able to replenish its colossal health pool. I could honestly take this up to like 15,000, and it's like Life does honestly have a pretty good card library. It's like Life's Divum spell is pretty good. Burrowing Bane is a staple in a Life's deck because it's just a really good overtime. Camp Bandit is a good shift, and you know, shifting and overtime is just insane. Life is also really good against traps, so against schools that trap a lot, Life is also good against those. And obviously, Life can heal pretty well with spells like Goat Monk, Hungry Caterpillar, especially Rebirth, and other things like Regenerate and Pigsy. And Life is just sort of, it's in this spot right now where it's like, it's a good school. Like, you can be competitive on a Life. It's just not as good as some of these other schools. And that's kind of all I really need to say on it. It's Life is just like a good, sustainable school. It forces the other person to play slow, and it's like, as a Life, you can control the match pretty easily, but the control can be wrested from you, honestly, kind of easy by other schools, depending on the school. So, you know, it's a good school. It's just not great like the others, is sort of what I'm coming up here. Next on the list is going to be Fire, in my opinion. I think Fire, like, okay, there's another giant gap in viability here, by the way. Fire is a good school. It is good at applying really good pressure with, you know, their overtimes. And, you know, Ifrit is just a massive hit that just puts on so much pressure. It's like 460 on every damage overtime. Depending on how many overtimes you already have on the target with a max of 3, is pretty crazy. It's like, it's an 8-pip spell that can do like a total of like 2,000 damage. I want to say it's close to that. And yeah, I mean, Ifrit is just a really, really solid hit. Sun Serpent, Fire still has for like right now, but it's about to get banned. But I don't think that's going to hurt Fire too much. Fire, it's like a Fire with like that's like spamming overtimes is going to be really, really good. Obviously, King Art is just nuts. I mean, clearing 7 shields before it hits. Like, this is a really good spell. And this, it's like Fire can just totally ignore shields, and that really, really helps it. And Fire is just sort of this prime aggressive school that can just like really do a lot of damage really quick. It's like if they get a Furnace on and they get, you know, a Wildfire up just as a bubble, it's kind of wraps. It's like 2 buffs for a Fire. That's usually just enough to just straight up murk people. Like, if you get an Immolate, like if you get 2 overtimes on, and this is also just a good trap counter. So if somebody is like trapping you and you use Immolate, you can immediately set up a Scion, which I mean, look at that. And then out of it, you can Dark Surge to get yourself a bunch of pips back, and then from there you can Ifrit, and that's nuts. That is just absolutely crazy to me. And Fire is just so good at pressuring. The only pitfalls that it has, to be honest, are, I mean, it can get a max of 68 pierce, just so we're clear. But the max resist that it can get is 62, which is still pretty low. Most schools can pierce a lot of that and, you know, be fine. And then the damage is also really high. But the pitfalls are just, like, it's not as sustainable, and a Fire can be out-damaged by other schools if they play their cards right. So a Fire just sort of needs to, like, beat their opponent to death as quick as possible, and they're just better at doing that than Storm right now, and that's why Storm is at the bottom and Fire is up here in the middle. There is definitely a case to be made that Fire can be higher. I just think that the other 3 schools are somehow even better than what Fire is at the moment. It's like, if these 3 schools weren't just totally nuts, it's like Fire would be like the best school, I would say. Like, Fire's in a good spot right now. The other 3 are just kind of insane. But let's Coming in 3rd, and it just goes to show that time is a flat circle, because these last 3 schools were the top 3 months ago as well. And yeah, coming in 3rd, Balance has taken, honestly, some pretty hefty hits as of late in the meta, but Balance is still definitely a big 3 school. It's It's only a little bit better than fire, I want to say. I was debating putting balance at 4 and fire at 3, but you know, balance is it's just got a lot of really important tools. It's like there's a lot of schools that require a bunch of pips to combo with, and that's how they keep control of the match. But balance is the master of control. A balance can just, I mean, I don't even think I have my PV deck set up anymore, but a balance can just mana burn, and like it destroys 3 pips and does mass. So yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do if a balance just decides to mana burn you and you're trying to combo? It's like you can't combo against a balance, and that's part of why they're so good. There's also, like, Hydra did get nerfed a bit ago, and it looks like it actually lost a bit more percentage on the shield, so that's honestly good. I like that. But yeah, balance, it's like balance sort of just has free reign, and it's got spells like you know, Gearhead Destroyer. This, I don't even know why this exists. It's a shift that balance just sort of has. It can also steal heal overtimes, which is just nuts. So this spell is just totally insane against ice, life, and death, and honestly even more schools too. It's like, this is just such a good card to have. It's a good source of healing, and it's a good source of damage, depending on who you're using it on. Balance also has Lore Master, which, you know, got this top path, which is just old lore, but a little less damage, so it's still pretty crazy. And then, I mean, Lore Master is just a really good hit. I would recommend packing a lot of these in your deck. And it's also got this spell, Scales of Destiny. So I was talking about Hydra and how it got nerfed, but Scales is the new Hydra. And as you can see from this bottom path, it's a triple hit, right? But it will echo a shield on the target, and it'll put a 65% tower shield back on you. So yeah, this is a big offense-defense move, and it's like Scales of Destiny is just an insane card right now. It's the new Hydra. Like, as I mentioned, it's just not as cracked as Hydra was, so balance is not going to be number 1 anymore, but you get the idea. The problem is here, this is supposed to not be echoing until after the hit, but it is echoing before the hit. So cool. Wiz. That's just how this one works. It's basically just a big offense-defense move, and balance can really just stall, and it's like it makes the other person have to get around that shield, which can cost pips, which balance can then mana burn. It's like balance, you have to play so differently against a balance compared to every other school. It's just it is that oppressive right now. And balance also has Mock, which is a pretty decent shad, but most of what balance is going to be, you know, using their shads on is Dark Surge, just to get more pips to mana burn with, and to Lore Master and Gearhead and Scales and all that jazz. And it's honestly just kind of crazy, if I'm being real. That's just sort of where we're at. And it's also got this this heal counter even with Rainbow Serpent. So yeah, man, balance is just a crazy school right now, and I can't really give any more thoughts on it. Balance is just really, really good. I didn't even mention Supernova. It's like, if you have Supernova TCs, which I'm sure I still do, it's 2 pips, 75% accuracy, so you just need a little bit more, but that's really not that big a deal. And you can just blow up somebody's aura for 2 pips, and it'll usually do like 1,000 damage or more. So yeah, that's balanced. And yeah, that is balance for you. Coming in second place is Myth, and Myth, I've seen some people try saying Myth is bad, but not only it's anybody who's saying that, not only are you not playing the school right, you are playing it severely wrong if you think Myth is actually bad. Because look at this card. Look at this card. This is an insane shield counter. It will put 2 fire overtimes on the target, and it will clear up to 4 shields, and it'll replace it with 45% myth traps. That's nuts. And then myth can also run immolate as a good trap counter, and put on just more overtimes, and like use trickster Oni. Like, this is still viable because of this. And then myth is just sort of, I should have led with this. Myth is a school that can ignore all forms of damage mitigation with the exception of Brace, and because myth has 65 Pierce, Brace isn't even that much of an issue anyway. So what I mean by that is, if somebody weaknesses you, you just Stone Colossus, and it does mass, and it also puts that that little deferred damage over time on the target after it clears a weakness. So yeah, Stone Colossus, ain't that fun? It's like this is just the most insane anti-weakness spell in the game right now. And then Drop Bear, for some reason, y'all remember how I was talking about how Fire got like all of these spells that just went directly through shields. Well, myth has one too now. And you saw on Monday that this spell is insane. And Drop Bear Fury, I mean, it clears the shields, puts on that little overtime, and then it just hits for mass. And I guess the devs thought this was an okay thing to add, so how about that? And then myth also has, Ninja Pigs, which does 735 damage for 6 pips. That's nuts. Myth has Shift, which is like an insane overtime counter. That's nuts. It's got this Baba Yaga Shad hit, which is, again, just nuts. It does so much damage. It's like unbuff, you're doing like 3,500, on an open hit. So yeah, Yaga is pretty crazy. And then you've got a Shield Gambit, which is also just kind of crazy. I mean, you could just spam Tri Shields and set it on up, and yeah, that's the myth school. You can also just Minotaur and ignore shields too if you don't have this. So what a world we live in. Myth is just insane, and it's about to get the spell called Reconnetin, which will replace the Splash Squatches in my deck. And what it will do is it will just destroy 3 shields, and then it will hit for like 400 damage base. So yeah, that's balanced, right? And an easy first place that I'm pretty sure all of you saw coming is the Death School. Now, Death has the craziest stats in the entire game. Let me actually equip a resist pet that I actually use, just so we're clear. Its damage cap is 202. Its resist cap is, I think, 78-ish, so this is a little under. And you can also get perfect accuracy with the Crystal Unicorn, and perfect accuracy for myth, so you can Minotaur people, and already you have perfect accuracy for Gearhead. So Death can both shield counter and overtime counter, which is, yeah, I mean, right. And then Death also, you can hit the Pierce cap with this setup. Death's Pierce cap is 56. This, I feel like, is high for Death, so Wiz, I guess, and then you can get all of it with perfect pips and pretty solid shads. Pip conserve goes down, but it's about to come up because there's a deck that's getting added, so how about that? And then, yeah, that's the stat portion of why Death is just so cracked. But this, okay, this spell right here, this is the main reason why Death is cracked. It does 575 damage, and it'll drain half of it back to health. So a Death can just spam Wraith and be totally fine. It's like this spell has 113 value per pip, so it's kind of hard to argue with this, I would say. Wraith is just absolutely nuts. For 6 pips, it does all of that. It is an insane swing card, and I hope it gets nerfed soon. So that's where we're at on that. And then obviously Poison does mass. Black Widow doesn't quite do mass necessarily, but it is still a good pressuring tool. And then, a Death can just sort of play one-dimensionally. Cool is a thing that exists. You can gambit 1 shield for a 55 blade, which is, I don't know why they thought that was okay. Skeletal Dragon does mass damage and is an insane blade counter. Vampire's Existence, I mean, all you have to really do is just look at this. So anyway, and then Grim Raider is the best shad in the game, without question. Just crazy. And then Death has a Drain Gambit and another Shield Gambit. So Yippee, guys. Balanced school here. And then, you know, if a Death also wants to take the Tri-Blade into the Wraith type strat, they could do that too and put 60% weaknesses on. Death is just a crazy school right now, and it's not hard to see why. Death is just, it's actually just cracked, and the Death also has an anti-aura. I just don't have it. It does good damage, and then it'll put a 70% weakness on the target, which, as I've said before many times, is a nuts thing that Death has. So, how about that? And then, yeah, between all of that, Death is just easily the best school right now. Or I guess not easily. Myth is honestly cracked out of its mind, but Death is still on top for the time being. So, how about that? Anyway, thank y'all for watching. That's going to wrap up the tier list. So, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I'll see y'all later.